Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description, in every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about the Season 1 finale, Season 1, Episode 9 of HBO's The Last of Us, entitled Look for the Light. I think the episode title here is referring to the end of the closing sequence that we see where Joel is doing his one-man murder spree that ends with what I think is the proverbial light at the end of the tunnel. We see a light coming from the end of a hallway, which is the room that Ellie is in at the end of this scene, about to have an operation performed on her, and we see the light coming from behind there as Joel approaches that door looking for his little beacon of light, Ellie. And what a great episode, man. There's a lot to discuss here, so I want to dive in. I don't want to spend a ton of time here. I don't want this to be a 30, 40-minute episode, video like other ones have been when I get to these finales, and they're great. Like the Succession finale was probably like a 35-minute video or some shit. But like I said, great episode, man. There's so much to discuss. So I want to dive in, and I want to start with the opening scene. This episode opens with the scene where we see Ellie's mother giving birth to Ellie. She goes into a house clearly expecting people to be there or to greet her, and also clearly expecting, I think, a zombie to follow her. And I'm kind of curious if we're going to explore this scene a little bit more in Season 2. I'm curious not just why she was expecting people to be in this house, just considering how run down it is. It kind of felt like she was expecting the people to already be there, but it could have just been a meetup spot or whatever that they had just agreed upon, as opposed to like a station or somewhere that they're like set up. But then also why she knew a zombie would follow her to that exact room. But I don't know, maybe maybe that zombie was right on her heels and we couldn't tell. But she barricades the door, and eventually the zombie gets in and it bites her, and she kills it right as she's giving birth to Ellie. Now, the actress playing Ellie's mother, Ashley Johnson, she also plays Ellie in the game. They did a great job of making her look like Bella Ramsey in this scene, right down to like the style of clothes she was wearing, her hairstyle. It was all very much the way they've done up Bella Ramsey for this show. So I like how they did a good job of taking the person that played Ellie in the game, having it be Ellie's mother in the show, and doing a great job of making her very recognizably Ellie. Like, as soon as I saw her, I was like, oh, this, and she's pregnant. I'm like, oh, this is Ellie's mom. This is a flashback, like, for sure. But Ellie's mom lies to Marlene about when she cut the cord. She's like, yeah, I cut it before I got bit, I swear, which we see is not the case. She cut it directly after she discovered her bite. And then she orders her friend Marlene to take care of Ellie for her. Marlene agrees, she takes Ellie, and then she kills the mom. Now, here's a moment that might, maybe, possibly be my one and only complaint about the show. It's a potential plot hole. I do not believe that this is gonna be like just something that it's not gonna be addressed. I don't believe that. It feels unlikely in general, but this show has not left anything unaddressed. And this kind of feels like the sort of thing that you can bring this up in season 2 and kind of fill this in. And and again, maybe this is something I'm tripping about. Maybe something I missed earlier in the season. I'm going to be doing a review of the 9th episode of Mayor Kingstown later. And there were things that happened in that episode that I had to go back to season 1. Like, did you miss something? And I realized that I did. So I could be missing something here. But this is the scene I want to talk about. We see Marlene take Ellie in this moment of Ellie being born. The mother saying, here, take my baby, go take care of her. She takes Ellie, she shoots the mom. So we see Marlene with Ellie at birth. We later see this season, well, not later this season, but later in Ellie's life, but earlier this season, we see Marlene task Joel and Tess with getting Ellie to the doctors. So how come in the flashback episode with Riley, she mentions joining the Fireflies, and she's like, well, Marlene told me, and Ellie's like, who's Marlene? She's like, she's the one who, and then she like cut herself off and stopped talking. Now, how is it that Ellie doesn't know who Marlene is if we see Marlene both in possession of Ellie at her birth and in possession of Ellie at the time she is sent away with Joel in this season of the show? How did Ellie end up in goddamn Fedra military school when she was adopted by the fucking Queen Firefly? So like I said, I will say, I fully expect this to be answered, and I even have like a bit of a theory about this that ties in with another theory that I'm going to get to at the end, but I just want to put it out there just because I want it to be known that I noticed. That's all. If I'm wrong, if I'm tripping, if I miss something, let me know. But I feel like I'm supposed to be noticing this. I'm supposed to know that there's something, a piece of information that's missing here. I think I know what it is, but we'll see in season 2. I hope. I expect to. So let's talk about the heart of the episode here, and no pun intended. And there are 2 things here I want to discuss. I want to discuss what happened between Joel and Ellie, and I have more to say about that than merely just what is on the screen, like, oh, these are the events of the episode. And then I also want to discuss the philosophical aspect of Joel's decision. So throughout this episode, we see Ellie looking pretty down in the dumps, right? She just had a rough go of it last episode. I won't say last week because it could have been the previous night for Ellie, but it's been a week for us. But last episode, getting kidnapped, nearly raped, having to dice my man's head into a fine powder. So we see Joel trying to be like super dad all of a sudden, right? He's been kind of a dick the whole season. Now they've gotten past that part. Now he's trying to be super dad. Like, he's all cheerful. He's all hopeful. He wants to hear some puns, which that's not in line with Joel's character. It's in line with my character. I'd never want to, me and Ellie would have been through the fucking pun book 17 times already. We might even read a page, let's run that page back. Me and Ellie would have been through the pun book 17 times. Not Joel's bag, but Joel wants to hear the puns. And I think it's pretty clear something is up with Ellie. Joel notices something's up with Ellie, but it's been so long since he's been a father that his fathering skills are pretty rusty. That's why the everything feels so disingenuous. Like I said, the pun book's not really his bag, but like, he doesn't know what else to do. He can tell there's something wrong. His father skills are rusty, so he's like, she likes the pun book. Let's talk about the pun book. And it's like, it's the right move to make, but it feels very forced. And I think Pedro Pascal does a great job of, and Bella Ramsey as well, a great job of like verbally having an interaction that makes sense, but physically, body language wise, you could see the discrepancy between their two vibes. Like, you got Ellie feeling like really down about something, and then you got him not awkwardly trying to make it better. I guess it's just, like, fathering is just like a tool that goes dull if you don't use it, I guess. Hopefully I'll never learn about that. But he tells her that they don't actually have to do shit. He's like, we could just say, fuck it, call it, go back to Tommy's community and just like live out our lives there. And Ellie's like, no, we're finishing this out. Like, look, after we're done, we can do whatever. We can do the sheep farm like you want it. We can go to space, to the moon like I want it. We can do whatever. But we finished what we started. I like that we finished what we started. I'm going to come back to this scene later. Joe later confesses to Ellie in another I think pretty heartwarming moment. That's why I said the heart of the episode. I said no pun intended. I realized like people probably don't even realize what the fuck pun I'm talking about, but I'm talking about this emotional emotional episode with a lot of heart to it, as opposed to like just like the center of the episode or the meat of the episode. But he confesses that his head scar isn't from some idiot who shot at him and missed. It's because he's the idiot who shot at himself and missed. Side note, when I was writing this, I started to write nearly missed, and it reminded me of the George Carlin bit where he talks about the idea of a near miss. Like, near miss means you didn't miss. Like, that's so I'm like, you look at I guess you look at it as like in this case is if the goal is execution and you don't get that, then you missed. But then, like, I don't know, near miss sounds like you did it, like you were successful. Like, I nearly missed, but I got you. So like like George Carlin talked about when they say that planes almost hit each other, it's a near miss. I'm like, nope, that's just a regular miss. But I almost put near miss. But yeah, so Joe confesses that to her, and I absolutely love how she says, I guess time heals all wounds, and he's like, it wasn't time, which is of course him implying that she's the one that healed his wounds and the wounds that made him want to kill himself. That's a lot to lay on a kid. Like, hey, I was gonna kill myself, but look, I was gonna kill myself. It didn't work, and all the pain that I've been going through, you've helped heal that wound. So, FYI, can't nothing happen to you because I might kill myself again, but no pressure. Like, kind of shitty, but like again, I love that scene though. That was a great scene. I thought Pedro delivered it magnificently. I'm gonna come back to that scene later too, actually. So they make it to the hospital and they're captured by the Fireflies. And it's at this point we learn from Marlene's mouth, and I frame it this way because Marlene ain't God. I don't even believe in God, so I'm definitely not believing in Marlene. Marlene, like, she just talked like, I don't know if Marlene's telling the truth or not. Like, what Marlene says is what Marlene says and nothing more. I have no reason to trust or believe Marlene, but what she says, I'm gonna take her at face value because I have no choice right now. But what she says is that Ellie is essentially immune because she thinks the Cordyceps have been with her and evolving with her since she was born, from the opening scene with the bite and all that. And it's created some chemical reaction that makes the Cordyceps kind of go, oh, they one of us. We don't gotta fuck with her. She already part of Team Cordyceps. We ain't gotta worry about it. So that's why she doesn't get sick, essentially. There's a chemical in her that makes the Cordyceps think she already Team Cordyceps. That's simple as it. That's all the science you need here. All the science you need here. So she wants to remove what's in Ellie and try to make a cure for that. The kind of manufactures that chemical reaction, so they can interject that into someone else. The Cordyceps go, oh wait, they Team Cordyceps. Now I don't think this would necessarily make so I wouldn't call this a cure. I'd call it a vaccine. I don't think, like, if this was successful scientifically, I feel like you can't interject this into someone who's already turned and then they'll go back to normal. Like, that to me is a cure. Like, oh, you're sick now, you ain't sick no more. I think what they're trying to do is essentially a vaccine. You inject that into somebody and they get bit, they won't get sick. So like, I think it's more of a vaccine than a cure. But hey, not a scientist. I just watched Dr. Fauci on the fucking news for like 2 years. But Joel knows that the Cordyceps affect the brain, and he correctly deduces that this will kill Ellie. I also correctly deduced this when Joel twice asked where Ellie was and Marlene didn't answer. I thought, okay, she's somewhere not good because he asked her twice and she hasn't. I'm saying this like while it's happening. He's like, take me to Ellie, and she says something different. I'm like, she didn't answer the question. That's a red flag. And then he does it again. I looked at my wife. I'm like, like, this ain't going good. And then Joel escapes and has a I'm gonna kill every motherfucker breathing to get to my baby girl scene. And I'm curious how you guys felt about it, because the soundtrack is a bit amplified here, and the gunfire, the chaos, and all that is a little bit more muted. It's not mute, it's just muted. Like the gunfire, you don't really hear that. You hear the music really well, and the music is very classical kind of. It's a lot more artsy-fartsy of a slang than you probably get accustomed to watching any other show. And I'm curious how that worked for you guys. Like, did you think that was more effective? Did you think it was less effective? Did you even notice the difference between this scene and your normal kind of like, I'm about to fuck shit up scene? Like, I thought it worked pretty well, but I think because of the more subtle tone to it, it took me a minute to understand what I was seeing. And when I say understand, like I understood that I was seeing Joe kill people, but I don't think I understood like, oh wait, this is like Joe's badass fucking hero moment, right? It took me a second. Because if they had played like fast-paced action music like you might see in John Wick or some shit, and you hear like all kinds of gunfire and there's smoke, I'm gonna sit up in my seat and go, oh shit, it's going down right now. Joe about to fuck some shit up. Like Joe about to start laying bodies down. Like I know, but because the music was a lot more subtle, it was a lot more soft, and the gunfire and all that shit was a lot more downplayed. It took me a minute. Like he killed a couple people, and I'm like, wait a minute. I'm piecing together. Like, wait, no, this is happening. This is an assault. This is Joel on everybody. And when he shot the one guy, and well, I don't even know if he shot him. I think he stabbed him. And then you see the fucking assault rifle laying there. I'm in. I'm like, yeah, grab that bitch. Let's go. We killing everybody in this motherfucker. Like I'm in. But I think it just took me longer because of the way they set that up. And I don't know if I'm not saying it was a good decision. I'm not saying it was a bad decision. I'm just curious what you guys thought about that and if it impacted your ability to like really grasp the gravity of what was happening, especially if you're somebody who played the game. Because if you played the game, you probably, assuming the game is like this, you probably already knew this was coming. So when they get to that scene, were you like, this is it? Or did it take you a minute? Like, oh, I don't like this. Or like, how'd you feel about that? So Joe makes it to Ellie before the surgery. He kills the doctor who foolishly tells the crazy man with the gun. He tells her, oh, I can't let you have her. Joe kills that guy, obviously. And then he ends up killing Marlene along the way in a way that I predicted just because of the nature of how he was carrying Ellie and how her hospital gown was draped over his gun hand. I was like, he could walk directly up to her and shoot her in the stomach and she'd have no idea. We find out that's not exactly what happened, but that's pretty much what happened. So once Ellie wakes up, she's clearly confused and upset. Joe tells a whole black ass lie. I want to call it a white ass lie because he's white, but white lie makes it like a small lie. This is a big lie about what happened. Tells her this whole black ass lie. Everything is just a whole lie, and she makes him swear that he's telling the truth, which he does, but he is not. And she says, "Okay." That's the end of this remarkable season, and I kind of feel like that might feel like that's a weird ending, right? But I want to get to my 2 points right now because I think these 2 points are going to add a little bit more to what I think happened here. So, raising the philosophical question of whether or not Joe did the right thing saving Ellie and lying to her about it, I don't know if the game leaves you with the question of, like, do you save humanity or do you save one person? And, like, you end the game and you're just like, oh, what an interesting conundrum. But I think the show leaves you with a lot more than that. And I hope the game does too. I'm not saying that the game only leaves you with like that question of like humanity or Ellie. Like I don't think it's that simple. The show I think is very clear that it's not that simple. I think the game probably is too, but I don't know. But before I even talk about the philosophical question, how much of humanity is even left anyway, right? Like, we're not talking about the 8 billion people on Earth right now in 2023. We're talking about the fraction of people that's left 20 years after a global pandemic starts, where people are dying off in far greater numbers than they're being born. Like, how many people are left to save, really? Like, I mostly say that tongue-in-cheek, but yeah, it's a question. It's a question. But my thoughts, it doesn't fucking matter whether or not it was the right thing to do, because the only thing that matters is that we need to believe the decision that Joel made is in line with Joel's character. And it absolutely fucking is. Like, remember how I said I come back to this scene that implied that, the scene that implied Ellie healed his wounds, where he's like, oh, time didn't heal him, you did. We've seen Joel lose his daughter. We've learned in this episode he was in such bad shape that he tried to kill himself. We've learned how scared he is all the time, and he has very real physiological reactions to it. You remember the whole heart thing, all this kind of stuff. We've watched his journey from fuck this kid to I got you, baby girl. You think he's going to get to the point of fully accepting her as his daughter after all he's been through and just willingly hand her over to be killed in order to save a bunch of people he doesn't know? Absolutely the fuck not. All I care about is that Joel's decision tracks with the Joel we've seen all season, and it absolutely does. So well done by the show on that part, because I'm not even here to talk about whether or not you save humanity or you save Ellie. I'm here to talk about how every bit of this season has built up to the idea that Joel don't give a fuck. He is going to save Ellie. He has every reason. All logic and reason is out of the way for Joel. He's experienced way too much trauma. He has dealt with way too much to finally let his guard down. Just to let her go? Absolutely the fuck not. So, like, well done by this show by taking a philosophical question like that and making it so that it doesn't matter. Like, I don't know if maybe you guys feel like it matters after watching it, and maybe after what I just said, you still feel like it matters, but I don't think that's the goal of the show. Like, it might matter to you, but I don't think that's the goal of the show. The goal of the show is to sell me that Joel made the decision that the Joel character would make, and they absolutely fucking nailed that. Shout out to them, man. The other thing I want to discuss, I said I wanted to talk about what happened between Joel and Ellie. And you might think that's what I've been doing up to this point, right? I've been talking about Joel and Ellie. But I've already discussed what happened to Joel and Ellie, not what happened between Joel and Ellie. That's the part that I really want to get to here. So I don't know if I'm doing too much by saying I think the show is pretty clear in telling us this, but I believe the show is also telling us that not only did Ellie know that Joel was lying about what happened, but I think Ellie knew the whole time that this ended in her death, and she was already right and squared away with that. So the fact that she's come out of this situation alive, I think is why she seems so confused and upset after she wakes up in the back of the truck. And that's also why she asked him to swear the story is true. And it's what lets her know that Joel is lying to her. Because he's like, I'm supposed to be dead. Like, and now I'm waking up like, I'm in the back of Joel's truck. This don't seem like heaven. Like that. These are probably all clues to her, like that Joel was lying. Joel says something to the effect of, he says to Marlene something to the effect of like, and you didn't bother to ask Ellie if she wanted to do this, something to that effect, right? And I said out loud at the screen, like, well, did they ask Ellie? I'd be curious what her thoughts are on this, but it never went that far and it never got addressed. If they had asked her and she agreed, that would explain why she woke up confused with the like, hey, wait a minute, this is a back of the truck and there's Joel. This ain't heaven. Like, I feel that would explain that, right? If she already knew going in that she wasn't gonna wake up. I also noted, in a hindsight is 2020 sort of way, that Ellie's after we do this, we can do whatever you want. We can go to the sheep farm, we can go to the moon. Like, that very much felt like the way a parent lies to a child to spare their feelings. Did it not feel that way, especially after the fact? Like, if now that I've laid that out here to you, made the case that Ellie agreed to this and knew about this the whole time and expected to die, doesn't that now kind of make it look like she was lying to Joel in order to spare his feelings? And then what does that do? That now more closely aligns their characters, because what did they both do then? They both have lied to the other person in order to spare that person's feelings. It's a perfect fucking like bow tie on a fucking Christmas present wrapped up. Like, that's gotta be what happened, right? And then I also said that would I'm calling back to another thing I said. That would of course mean that Ellie always knew this was the plan for her, which could also mean that could also explain my question about her not knowing Marlene earlier. Maybe she ended up at the Fedra camp because it came out. Well, no, she would still know who Marlene is, though. Unless Marlene gave a fake name. But my point is that maybe she ended up at the Fedra camp because the Fireflies were like, yeah, we have to kill you to manufacture this cure. She's like, fuck that, I'm out. And ran to fuck the Fireflies Fedra camp. So that, like, maybe that's how she ended up there. But that doesn't explain how she doesn't know who Marlene is unless she never met Marlene or Marlene never gave her a real name. So that could be a possibility too. But then she would have later ran into Marlene and be like, hey, I remember you from Firefly camp. But I don't know. I still think they're going to come up with something to solve for that. I don't think that I don't know. I feel like that's a little too obvious to leave open. But again, like I said, I could be missing something. But good arc for season 2 regardless. Definitely a good arc for Joel and Ellie's relationship going forward, dealing with this idea of like, I can't trust you, you keep lying to me, and then the other person's like, well, you lied to me too, you knew this whole time. Like from Joel's perspective, he might be like, yeah, like you knew what I had been through with my daughter, and you continue to take me on this fucking journey that you knew was gonna end in your death, and you knew what that would do to me, and you sit there, you took me on this fucking journey. Like, he's gonna be mad, like everybody's gonna be mad, and they're gonna be totally justified in it. I can't wait for season 2. This is an incredible fucking season of television. This is going to be in my top 10 for 2023. I mean, obviously it's early, so it's obviously sitting at number 1 right now. Will something come that's gonna knock it down? I guess we'll see. And I'm gonna close out with one final thought. How about that fucking giraffe scene, man? Wasn't that fucking gorgeous? All of the fucking dreary, dark, dirty, we're in pitch black, got clicking on flashlights, dealing with all of these places that look like they haven't been inhabited in 50 fucking years, all the cobwebs and dirt and dust and all of this darkness, and then to come into something so vibrant, so lush, having that life, the giraffes, the whole family of them, a beautiful fucking scene, man. So, incredible, remarkable season. I can't wait for season 2. Let me know what you guys thought about season 1 in the comments. I will see you guys next year. Maybe I'll be back for maybe like a follow-up episode. I still got more of the game to play, so more of that's coming. I will see you guys then, and until then, peace.